Hello YouTube, this is Ben Gessel. How's it going? Um, so, I'm going to try to keep this one not too long, but I can go on quite a bit in regards to this particular video, um, this subject. It has to do with one of my hobbies, which is drawing maps and designing adventures, fantasy adventures. Thing is, I've actually never um, been a Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master, not officially. And if I've ever started a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, um, ever in my entire life, it was not. We didn't. It wasn't. It didn't like go very far. And I'm not trying to put down anybody who does Dungeons and Dragons as a board game. I'm not trying to put that down, anyone down. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm trying to say is, from my understanding, Dungeons and Dragons was a board game that became very popular in the 70s and 80s. And later on, I think video games kind of took over a little bit, or at least the heyday of their popularity was a time when they were very popular, and then still is popular, but it had kind of a. You can watch other videos, I'm sure, about this very subject, but I mainly know about Dungeons and Dragons more from video games, and have found the board game to be rather cumbersome, and so that a lot of other editions have made things easier. So one of the big things in this video I want to mention is that it's when you're telling a story, most of the time, at least when I was younger, my concept of the story was that the storyteller is telling the story and everyone else listens, rather than something more interactive where you have the people listening are directly involved in the story, making decisions as to what happens. And I think, in all honesty, that kind of interactive activity, I would like to do a lot more of that still in my life. And there are people that do this live action role playing thing that I think are a little bit odd in regards to how much they get into their character. It's funny and fun, I suppose, but it's a little bit odd. I have nothing against those folks either. I think it's pretty impressive, in a way. It's one of some folks that get really good at that would be good actors. And at this point, you're probably thinking about some of the Vin Diesel movies out there, or some of the clips of Vin Diesel playing Dungeons and Dragons, that sort of thing. So, yep. But look, maybe I'm not making a whole lot of sense. In a nutshell, you don't need. I'm trying to say is you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need Dungeons and Dragons manuals. You don't need rule books, monster manuals. You don't need dice. You don't need the characters. You don't need the figurines. You don't need campaigns. You don't need any of that in order to have a good, fun story or fantasy adventure with someone telling a story or someone who's designed a world, an area, or quests, and you have people involved as players, party members in that quest. You can just have a map and have the person in charge, call him the dungeon master in a loose sense, have him looking at the map and explaining what's happening as people go different directions and do different things. That's all you need, and the dungeon master can figure out all the other details on his own. He should be able to. And if someone says, "Oh, that's not fair," well, would you rather spend 2 hours in a battle, or would you rather spend 2 seconds in a battle? Gosh, there's other things to do with your time. See, this is one of the big drawbacks of Dungeons and Dragons. It's too time consuming with the dice rolling. Now, the best dungeon masters probably get really good at all these details and things. But heck, are they paid for it? If it's this giant if it's all this takes a lot of research and skills and that sort of thing in regards to managing all these different calculations very quickly with using a calculator and then still trying to keep the momentum of the combat situation going. I mean, gosh, it's just it seems like it's a little bit too much for me to. It seems just very cumbersome, and it's usually probably better situation I usually think it is. But in a Dungeons and Dragons game, when you have certain people, certain kinds of folks, you can have folks in the situation that get very upset and it kind of make it not fun for anybody else. If someone dies, for instance, you should let that person rejoin the story at some later point as a different character. Maybe they might have all the original things that they picked up. Now let's get new things. Maybe you'll have to give them a few things, so make them a little bit more equal to the experience of the level, whatever that the other guys have. But you know, it's what are people afraid of? They're afraid of dying sometimes in these adventures, like fantasy adventures. If they can come back to life as another character, I think it kind of resolves that fear of being kicked out of a game until a new game is until they're done with it. And see, the thing is, some adventures this can take way too long, like months, hopefully not years. I mean, you know that's why most of the time I never finished anything. A few times I ever played Dungeons and Dragons, when I was younger. I think it could be like once or twice at the most. And I had a roommate who was interested in this kind of thing, but we never really got it off the ground either. He was too wrapped up in all this stuff. I don't know. So it doesn't have to be complicated. So I'm trying to say, this kind of thing doesn't have to be complicated at all. It can be much more simple. Just take all that stuff out. I don't think Gary Gygax would be at all. He would be okay with that. He just, when the dungeon master makes all these decisions themselves, well, you can't complain. You can say that's not fair, but he says, well, that was how I saw the situation working out. At some point, you can rejoin the game as another character and just let it be. And it also, that kind of setup lets a lot of other people be in charge of a story, so long as they can come up with good world maps. Now, I have a very vivid imagination, and this is something I'd like to do more in the future. So I don't want people to insist on this way of doing adventures. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that detailed. If you're fighting a dragon, again, you don't need dice. You just, the person who's in charge of the story should be able to figure out what's going to happen. And if someone gets stepped on by a dragon's foot, dies immediately, that's what happens. It's like, it's a powerful enough dragon, he's close enough. That's why it's dangerous to be a fighter. Anyway. So, I think for anyone designing a fantasy adventure, they should always be thinking about the possibilities. The sheer possibilities for everything, for different characters you can have in your game. I talked a lot about landscapes, but there are a lot of settings, a lot of different things you could do that haven't been done before. If it's so generic just to have a forest with green trees and even deciduous trees. It doesn't take any imagination. What is more impressive is if you could describe the pine cones in a certain forest as being certain vivid colors. Maybe they're glow-in-the-dark colors. Maybe they're not pine cones. Maybe they're fruit. Maybe it could be a little bit of both. Maybe they're seeds or nuts. But they are very, very vividly colored and they have certain designs on them, certain shapes. The trees themselves maybe might be more of a frightening forest at night where the trees kind of bend and twist and block your way, perhaps. Or it looks like they have faces that are frowning. maybe you look up at the moon, and the moon all of a sudden has this really scary-looking face. You know, I'm just, again, this is the person who's in charge of a campaign should have that kind of imagination. And if they don't, it's going to make it just kind of dull for everyone else. What is an adventure? Is it just combat? Are you just fighting orcs and get some gold, rescue someone, and that's it? Come on. I mean, gosh, the first time I saw Super Mario Brothers, when I was 8 or 9 or 10, I don't know how old I was. It was a little right in the ballpark. I mean, I was like, oh, there's this little guy jumping around on the screen. What's the goal? What happens after you pass level 8? You rescue the princess, and you know, he's just trying to get there. He's going through all these different levels. It's one of the most basic games in the world. Why did I think it was pretty cool? Well, because of the way it looked, perhaps. The jumping idea, boing, boing, you know. Mushrooms make you be a beggar, sure. Kind of borrowed it from Alice in Wonderland. You had the regular world, then you had the water area, and you had, gosh, I don't know, some other land areas. You had a cloud area, I suppose, and you had, eventually you got to this cannon area, and you had like this scary area, this lava castle area in the middle of the game. It's been so long since I've played this game, and I remember there's this place you could like jump to different, like the last level, or something if you wanted to. At the very end, of course, you grabbed the flag and went, pulled the flag down and had your score. But you don't, and then of course there's endless games where you're just killing. You don't have to have an adventure that involves killing at all. No one has to be killed. Who says anybody has to be killed? Doesn't have to be at all related to J.R.R. Tolkien. Doesn't have to be. You don't have to have elves. You don't have to have any of that stuff. Make your own creatures. It's like. So, if you do use anything that's already out there, any character ideas or any creature ideas, gosh, you should have a really good reason for doing that. If I want to use a hag, because I think the idea of hag is extremely frightening. And I have a certain character in mind that's definitely a hag. Yeah, I'm going to use a hag. I'm going to use a giant spider who's friendlier. That's what I'm going to do. But if I want to design something else, who's a flying mushroom, with a face, and has an eccentric personality. Well, gosh, I'm going to have a flying mushroom with an interesting looking face and eccentric personality. And yeah, he's going to be a little bit odd. You won't know what to make of him. But that's the character I'm going to have. And stick by it. A bully who's too fat and he tries to punch someone, but he punches his own stomach. You might think some of those ideas are corny or pretty good. Either way, you don't want to have 500 orcs and 10 different caves, all that have, each one has goblins or bandits with people in little stick prisons that they should be able to get out of easily. I'm sorry, Elder Scrolls. I know I'm picking on here a little bit. Elder Scrolls. Specifically, in this case, Oblivion. I've played Morrowind as well. Yeah, you don't have to do that stuff. Get out of that rut. You don't have to do what has already been done. It just, maybe a few things should inspire you, but gosh, go somewhere, go a different direction. So think about what we live for. Why do we want to play a fantasy adventure? Well, we want to have fun, but we also want to have things in the fantasy adventure that reminds us of our own lives, what we're after in life. So by all means, think about some of the things that are more meaningful to people that are going to be playing this game. Really. I mean, it's a good idea, but then you probably want to think about also not having to think about the crowd, who's what things might be considered offensive. Certainly, to keep it appropriate, depending on the crowd, and then also keep it meaningful. Um, teenagers are prone to probably find goblins and orcs and those unless I guess let me rephrase that train of thought. If you have some very artsy folks that are going to want to try something like this, um, one centaur that is maybe very thoughtful, or one faun or satyr that's poetic, and one dragon that likes to ask riddles. Maybe it's very integral to the story, but really, their characters, no matter what they are, gosh, you need to really think about these characters and what's going to happen in the story big time, because if there's anything that happens that's a more juvenile, like a way like endless combat. If you're going to have any kind of combat, or you're going to have any treasure that you can, open with some lockpick that gets nothing. Sometimes people forget sometimes that it should be a little bit harder to pick locks than maybe it often is in video games. But just keep in mind what people find enjoyable. Do I really want to go rescue a princess when I would rather go maybe there's this description of some nymph behind a waterfall that's misunderstood by everyone, and she's maybe not quite as flashy in terms of her beauty, but maybe she's playing some harp that has some, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, or maybe, there's some mirror that there's a story about people jumping into this mirror and go to another world, and this world is just different, and everything's kind of blurry, and you hear people, but they sound like there's an echo. You can't really hear them too well, and everything's kind of different. And there's things about this world that are mind bending, and you kind of stretch your legs across the entire universe or something. You feel like you're doing that. You can become as big as you want to be. Who wants to rescue Princess when you can go to these other places that you haven't really done something like that before? Because essentially, in a fantasy adventure, we know it's not real. In the real world, I think we would definitely want to rescue a princess, especially if this is someone we truly loved and wanted to maybe marry. At a certain point, rescuing princesses becomes meaningless unless the person in charge of the campaign and story really makes a character who's a princess, especially deserving of being rescued, or have to entice. This is the kind of thing that I think it's very important to think about. Okay. Or I hate the go fetch quests. Go get this, go get that, go get this, go get that. Oh yeah, in order to do this, in order to beat the game, you have to assemble some weapon to defeat some monster. And then of course the different things are scattered everywhere. So then that takes you all the different places, and then you fight. It's such a generic thing, Who wants to do that, really? Really, who wants to do that? Sure, When you're playing a video game, of course, some people just want to go kill And of course, anybody in the military would readily say you have no idea. Those kids, you have no idea what killing really is. Of course, that goes without saying. But, okay, so for creators of stories, inventing maps and that sort of thing, think about the landscapes, what we live for, visual. There's a visual moral character connection that we always make, and you can play with that a little bit, but still try to have. If you have a character that's all blue, well, that might suggest to a person, oh, this character is very sad or very maybe a little bit evil. Perhaps blue being a darker color, either sad or dreary. The color, each color has an effect on us. And if you have a blue character who's the life of a party, who's actually really funny, it's one of those ironic things. We would expect someone who's wackier colored or bright orange and green polka dots or something like that to be a little bit like that way. Who knows? But think about adding in colors, and sounds, smells, and tastes, different cultures, what people, different places, people value different things. They behave a little differently. Just think about all those things. What people, what drives people to do different things. Start the players in safer areas if they don't have any weapons, if they're not very strong, with more dangerous areas further from the starting point. If you kill off people are going to say, "Oh, that wasn't very fun." And they have to go do something else. Everybody else, all their friends are. When I think about ways of having that person come back in the game as get a different character, or they're resurrected somehow, or just don't have. You can have a completely safe game where nobody gets killed. It's just puzzles and other things, and who knows, So there's a lot of different possibilities. Some people don't like adventures as much as other people, of course. My own family doesn't really like adventures as much as I do. So it's okay to make them smaller, simpler. The maps don't have to be as grandiose or detailed. And of course, it goes without saying, if you're ever just doing something like this for kids, you can absolutely have cutesy little unicorns if you want to. And there's something, to be said for just making... Because who says that this kind of thing has to only be for nerdy teenagers or adults? Everyone, we like a good story. We would probably enjoy it even more if we had a hand in the story ourselves. Something more interactive that way. I honestly believe that this kind of activity, if someone was concerned about the amount of time people were spending on video games, this kind of activity would be a remedy for that kind of thing. Because we all know how amazing entertainment video games and the games can be. But if you're creating a world, if you're with your friends or whatever, and you're doing this kind of activity, but you don't have to. You're not using necessarily Dungeons and Dragons setup. You can kind of do things how you want to do them. Nothing's stopping you from doing that. Who says that there's any rules? There are no rules. The only rules that would apply would be the ones that you all agree to do. The skill of storytelling and being, I guess for lack of a better word, a dungeon master. You might think Dungeons and Dragons again, but something more along the lines of what I'm talking about, an interactive kind of story. They are rather similar, but you don't need to spend hours on end figuring out what is going on every second in a combat scenario with dice. Again, I mentioned this before. You can just skip all that. The person in charge of the adventure should be able to determine what will happen based in a combat situation or any other kind of situation. If you're crossing a rickety bridge or something like that, or if you're some kind of skill involved, trying to get across a frozen lake where you might fall in. all kinds of like that. The person in charge should be able to figure out what happens based on each character's decisions, their moves, their weight, how they positioning their body, weapons, all kinds of stuff like that. And then a party themselves will anyway, and you don't have to have people going wacko with their characters either. I think the LARP community is great, but there are some fruity people out there a little bit. So, no offense, there are some odd folks. So, no offense, Dungeons and Dragons. I love Dungeons and Dragons. It's a great company, but I think that they've definitely inspired a lot of us. But it can be very time consuming. It can be very complex. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to worry about a certain fourth edition. Who needs to worry about an easier edition or the fifth one or whatever? When you can just skip all that and just stick with the map and creating your own character and skip all that. So hopefully this video has been helpful. I think that just remember, there's no rules in fantasy other than the ones that you think should be there. Now, by saying there's no rules in fantasy adventures and things, I'm not suggesting that you should ever toss out your own moral standards, or certainly not the law. Of course, there's always things that apply in any situation. But I'm saying is everyone can enjoy themselves a lot more when they don't have to be thinking about math, when they should be thinking about picturing a gigantic red dragon that's about to swallow them whole. So, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. In the interest of having fun and with this kind of activity, you don't have to have all the D&D stuff. All right, guys, take care. Talk to you soon.